Hi, I'm Kavita Sherchan and welcome to No Filter, No Frills. This is a four-part mini-series exploring the real stories of South Asian working women now living in Manila. We will be looking into the challenges stemming from the deep-rooted patriarchal mindset and the choices we make navigating careers, families, and identity. In today's episode, we will be talking about fitting into the mold. We will be discussing the societal expectations and need to conform while balancing our careers and own expectations. Joining us today for this conversation are Shamala Abiratne from Sri Lanka, Tushima Kumar from India, Geetika Arora from India, and Sabha Khwaja from Pakistan. Shamala, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Kavita. Yes, I'm from Sri Lanka, born there, but I grew up in Thailand and actually mostly in Rome, Italy. I did my undergraduate degree in Canada and my master's and PhD from Cornell University in the United States. I have had several decades of work experience in the development sphere, mainly in water resources management, water irrigation, environmental management, and water and sanitation. This took me all over Asia, but also many years in India, which I'm very happy to talk about soon. And I have, since India, moved to Manila, to the Philippines. We've been living here for quite a while now and are retired also in Manila. So I'm able to enjoy all the creative things I couldn't do before when I was a working spouse, mother, and so on and so forth. And I enjoy all of that now. And I have two lovely little granddaughters who I see occasionally.
Tushima Kumar, I'm born and brought up in Lucknow in India. I'm an engineer by education and a poet by heart, and I've had 30 years of experience in the IT sector in different countries, India, US, Philippines, across different organizations like Unisys, Deutsche Bank, Accenture, Siemens. I am blessed with two daughters who are right now in New York. One of them is working, one of them is studying. And I love traveling, and I'm also an ultra runner. The longest I've run is around 100 kilometers. Last year, after 30 years of corporate life, I sort of took taking a break, or I would say reinventing myself with different things which I'd always wanted to do in my life. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Geetika Arora, born and brought up in New Delhi. I've only very recently relocated to Manila. I got married last year and my husband has been working in Manila for the last 2 years. So I took the decision to relocate and be here. In India, I was working for one of the world's largest real estate advisory firm. I've in fact been with them for over 18 years. I was a senior director as part of their land and capital markets team. And I still continue to be in that role, but now I'll be transitioning and I'll be joining the firm's local office here in the Philippines as part of their consulting team. And yeah, I'm now very excited to be in the Philippines. Like you said, I love traveling as well, so I'm looking forward to exploring the country.
Hi, I'm Sabha Khwaja. I am from Lahore. That's where I did my early years of education, did my college, also my MBA degree, and started working in corporate banking. And after getting married, I transitioned into a role of a trailing spouse, and we've lived in Jordan, China, and now in the Philippines for the last 14 years. I have 3 children, and after a long career gap, 5 years ago, I started working again, and I work for an international NGO that works for affordable housing in the Southeast Asia, and I'm the regional director there. So it has been a long journey for learning and unlearning, and then picking up new skills to adapt to lifestyles and make wonderful new friends. So I'm very happy to join you all.
Very happy to have you all, and thank you all for coming. And taking our last episode's conversation forward, Shyamala, you've been to India in 2 different times for 2 different international positions. Were you faced with any kind of mold there, and how did you deal with it?
Yes, so I was recruited by the Danish Foreign Ministry, or Danida, to be the chief advisor for water and sanitation in India. Now, from Danida's side, this is in the 1990s, I was actually the first woman to be chief advisor. So that was already breaking something, a barrier there. But when I arrived in Delhi, I faced a whole different ball game, because I remember the engineer-in-chief sitting across me, long table, sitting, very upright, and he looked at me and he said, "What is a young woman like you doing in a place like this?" Wow. At that point in time, I was in my late 30s. I had a child accompanying me, but no husband. And more than anything else, they expected a Danida chief advisor to be a white, old man. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was none of those. I also wasn't an engineer, right? So I didn't tick off any of the boxes that they expected me to tick off. So it was a struggle. I will not say otherwise. On a daily basis, there would be little things, but I found that with time, because also I was the boss, so I decided, okay, just be professional but firm, and get things done. And these were huge water and sanitation projects, several $1 million, etc. So things with time got better. I used to be amused because they would call me sir, because that was the only thing they knew for a boss. So it was very automatic, right? So they would say, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," all that. And I would laugh because my deputy was a Dutch man who was 6'3", and so we would kid around and say, "Okay, now we better call you madam," if I'm sir. So anyway, so this continued, but I found that they could recognize somebody in a particular slot. So yes, there is a mold in a way, and that mold, if it's the boss, after a point, they were okay whether it was a woman or a man in the end, because that was the boss, right? So you sort of fitted into a mold which was a different mold, maybe. So that happened. I still very much keep in touch with many of those old engineers who worked with me, except now they call me madam.
In your second innings in India, you went with your husband, and he was the trailing spouse. I can't imagine in the 1900s and 2000s to be that case, and it's still the same, right? People have certain perception about a male trailing spouse. So how was it for you and for him in those days?
Yeah, that in itself was also another mold in a way that I had to break. I came back as in my second sort of innings to India as the country director for an international organization. And again, I faced challenges in the office because there's always this expectation that an international staff will somehow be white and a male. So that was there, and subtle things would happen where, okay, I have a PhD, I expect to be called Dr. Abe Ratna, but no, I'm always Miss Shyamala, but it'll be Dr. Venkata Rao, Dr. Naidu, etc. at any public conference, So it's little things, but it's also big things. In the meantime, my husband accompanied me that second time as a trailing spouse, and that was definitely a novel thing. It still is, frankly, as you know. It doesn't happen very often, but he did follow me. And from his perspective, he's also used to kid around and say, I feel like a blushing bride sequestered, in the back of the house because you're going out. And it's true. I used to be invited to cocktail parties or, official events and so forth that he wasn't invited to, right? So I used to be out evenings as well. But it was also interesting that when he was invited and we went to one of these functions, people would gravitate towards him and say, so what do you do? And I'm, you know, ignored. And the minute he says, I don't do anything, I'm sitting at home, they would like, oh my goodness, the eyebrows would go up and they would be, what do you do all day? You know, kind of question, right? So it was always with surprise. I also have to say that though he was in the house, I think it goes back to your first segment, though he was in the house, occasionally he might go out and buy some fish, but let's say that I did everything related to the house,
Yes.
right? Whether it was
Yes.
the groceries, managing the
Yeah.
staff, the, you know,
Yes.
everything, paying the
Yes.
bills.
Yes.
Certainly, we had our son who was a teenager at that point, anything related to him, it all was done by me, even though he was supposedly now the house husband,
Yes.
okay? So that is there. And I also like to say it's not easy for a man either,
Yes.
because,
Sure.
you know, you as a woman, you're the primary income earner.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. So I kudos to my husband that he was sort of comfortable in his own skin that he could take on that role, but we have to recognize that it is not an easy role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was for at least 6 years. And then we moved to Manila with him in the job, and I followed, partly because I said I wanted to take a break. But when I arrived here, I found, first of all, me being the trailing spouse, my God, it fitted into everybody's expectation and mold, right? We went to a cocktail party. Nobody asked me even anything other than, how do you make a curry? You know, that's the only question. I might have spoken to the president of India the week before, but now I was only asked those kinds of questions. So I struggled very much here, suddenly becoming the trailing spouse and the role reversal, because I had no identity. I just did not have an identity. But it was very easy for everybody else, right? So I, you know, it's sort of give and take and a balance between lots of things, and it's also how other people look at it. And going back to my Delhi days, I have just a funny observation that I'd like to tell you. So we had a male cook, chef in the house. And this man couldn't get it, you know, that the Saab is sitting at home and the Mem Saab is going off to work, right? He just couldn't stomach this thing. And so every day, anyway, at 10 and then at 4, he would bring tea to the sir, you know, with the biscuit and everything, and hand it to him. And I would come home late, tired, exhausted. Never was I ever offered a cup of tea,
course.
right?
Oh, wow.
So those are the things that one. It's the dynamics between a husband and wife for sure, but it's also
The
you know
patriarchal mindset.
it's in that little thing apart from the rest of society.
Yes. So coming to you, Tushima, growing up, did you feel there was, or in your job, did you feel there was a mold that you had to fit into, and what did you do?
When I reflect on it, you know, growing up in Lucknow in the early 70s, very interesting times. So whenever my nani or grandmother would visit us during vacations, she would teach me sewing, embroidery, and if she would see me waking up late, she would say, you know, you have to wake up early as a female of the house because you have to get chores done before everyone wakes up. I would also see my school friends and my neighborhood friends learning cooking at a very early age, maybe grade 10th. And they were also looking after the younger siblings. When I went to college, engineering college, there was the ratio of females, like we were hardly less than 10% of the whole batch was just us. And interestingly, there was no dress code in the college. Everyone would just wear whatever they would. But any female who would not wear a dupatta with a kurta suit or would wear jeans was labeled as chalu. In group projects, we could see that although the groundwork and the hard work would be done by the females, it would be the male batchmates who would get the critical part of presenting in front of the class. I mean, those kind of biases, or you would say molds, were there. And there was a very funny incident in one of our seminars where the electronics batch was supposed to present their thesis and research for the semester. So there was a break, like after 7 or 8 students had presented, there was a break of 10 minutes. And the professor suddenly, out of the blue, asked the females, myself, including myself, oh, could one of you sing? It was so bizarre and out of the blue. And I just got up and I said no, and some not so good words. And of course, I got the lowest grade that semester. I still remember that incident. The same continued at workplace, where again, like the female ratio was very, very low at that time. And we were, if there was a visitor, especially from outside who was coming, and this I'm talking about, 1990s, the females were expected to wear traditional attire, saris, and welcome. And these are all engineers. We are in the in the IT sector. We are all engineers. We are expected to usher them in, welcome them, take them to the conference rooms. And if there was food in the conference room meetings, whatever we had, it was usually the females who would pass the food around or open it up. I mean, these are small things I'm relating, but it did matter. These have happened. So and also, right, like in continuing in my workplace early in my career, I observed that my male counterparts, and we are at the same level, same skill set, they would get an opportunity to go abroad for a projects, whereas I was not even asked. So twice this happened, and then I went to my boss and I asked him, like, is there something lacking in me that I'm not getting these opportunities? And he said, oh, I didn't even think about you because you have a small child, like, how would you travel abroad? So as a female, I was not even given the choice of saying no or choosing not to go. And of course, my colleague who had gone had 2 kids.
Have you ever felt the need to change your personality to be more acceptable, or have you refused to fit into the mold?
Kavita, if I reflect back, I think there have been many a times where I have changed my behavior style and then questioned the norm or the mold. In Lucknow, right, there's a mix of Hindu and Muslim culture, and I saw my friend's mom wearing burqa, whereas also I was watching very futuristic women-centric serials like Ulan, which were based on a true story of an police officer called Kiran Bedi all those times, which sort of, I was like, okay, I want to be like her. That's how she inspired me. And all around me, like my father, who, called, as I mentioned, he used to call me son. He pushed me into learning swimming, horse riding, rifle shooting, martial arts, anything and everything. Whereas my mom, during summer vacations, she would have me join classes of art and craft, learning embroidery or making paintings and all of that, which I enjoyed as well. And then, like, when I go further, when my father took me and my younger brother to join the martial arts taekwondo class, I was the only female. So the coach first asked my father, like, are you okay with this? Like, she's the only female and there will be mock fights and she will be fighting all of these boys. And they were not boys, they were men, because me and my brother were the youngest there. Of course, my father said, yes, go ahead. So after passing certain belts, like you are supposed to do mock fights with your partners, and I saw everybody was very soft around me, careful not to hit me and all of that. it went on for a month, and then I started sort of fighting back with all my might and force, and it really hurt them. The coach saw it and he said, guys, just treat her as your own. Don't treat her like a girl, treat her like your opponent in a fighting battle. So that was one. And of course, I used to go back home with blue and black bruises, on the shins and on my hands, and my knuckles were all black and thick with the grinding in the sand. And I heard my neighbors, aunties telling my mom, have you seen your daughter's hand? They look like a farmer's hand. How will you ever get her married? So there were comments like this all around. And a very funny incident, like one of my classmates joined the same taekwondo class, and he saw me and he was surprised. And the next day, the whole school was abuzz with, oh, Tushima knows fighting, blah, blah, blah. And I could see respect in all the school bullies for me. And I think continuing the same thing as my, from my office, all the opportunities to going abroad, as I mentioned, was given to my male colleagues, and I really had to be vocal and had to have multiple meetings with my boss to convince him that I can manage home front, right? I'm okay to go abroad even with the family. So it took a lot of discussions to convince the other people of that this is not a slot or a mold you have to cast us into.
And now I'd like to share my experience also. Growing up in Nepal, there was a certain expectation on how you dressed up, how you behaved, as a woman, right? But my mom was totally different. My mom was a rebel. She was born in 1947, so in that decade she would only wear Western outfits, and she continued wearing that also after marriage. I don't remember, except for one friend whose mom would wear anything other than sari. And I begged my mom, please don't wear pants, please don't wear skirt, can you not be like other moms, why don't you wear saris, look at the neighborhood women, look at everyone. But she's like, you decide what you want to do with your life, I am doing my own stuff. And just imagine, this was me who grew up in this very liberal household, and I had a certain expectation of what a woman should look like, right? What a woman should wear, just because of what I was saying around. And even now, there are some people who still refer to women as Charlene, and Charlene is a word which I think includes so many words: elegant, graceful, dignified, whatnot. So they still refer to a woman who is wearing sari as Charlene. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I really love my saris and I love to wear saris. When I wear sari, it should be my choice, not because somebody is expecting me to wear sari. And I have made it a point that whenever I'm appearing in a public forum, not on social gatherings, in a public platform, I always make it a point not to drape a sari. And this is my way of sending a message to all the little girls out there who probably have, the same notion that to be graceful, to be accepted as serious, you have to wear sari.
Kavita, I agree with you. I mean, I can see your point of view, but I think, have a slightly different perspective, which is, I feel very much that a sari or anything that's considered feminine is okay, even though you might be a feminist. I feel that these two are not sort of mutually exclusive. Yeah. So through my career in India, at least, I mean, I broke all the molds that existed, but I did wear a sari. I did have flowers in my hair. I did put my bangles on. And I was very comfortable doing that, not because I had to. Again, I was their boss, so I could have worn probably anything. And I was still an outsider, right? Because I was also another nationality. I could have. But I felt happy in that outfit. So I understand what you're saying, but I also feel that, somewhere there is this Western thing of also power dressing if you're a woman. And power dressing usually is, wear a blazer and look as masculine in a way as possible, right? To be sort of successful. So I think perhaps I'm reacting to that also, saying, no, be as feminine as possible, even if you are a feminist and don't believe in all the rest of the trappings that go with it. So I think that's how I feel.
So here I'd like to say a few things. First, in your case, you were a boss. No matter what you wore, you would still be a boss, right? And you were wearing out of your choice. So my point was that people should not feel compelled to wear certain outfit just because the society expects. And the other one is more about your freedom, your ability to choose what you want to wear. And if a woman is not Charlene, because she's not wearing a sari, then I would prefer not to be Charlene.
Right.
That's all.
So if I can just add to that, there's an
Yes.
interesting thing in Sri Lanka, which is sort of almost a subtext,
Okay.
which is that if you are a staff officer of some seniority, then you would wear a sari.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a secretary or a typist, and I don't know whether it's true for your countries, but if you're, say, the secretary or typist in the office, it's okay. Wear a dress, wear pants. So there is that subtle subtext,
Yes.
which is something like what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that is also there. But I'm totally with you, because I think, you wear what you're comfortable with and own it.
In these days, in certain geographies and even certain religions, dressing is given way more importance than it should be. What a woman wears is so much to do with her own decisions, how she's feeling that day, what color suits her, how does she feel, she wants to wear full sleeves, half sleeves, and other people come at the peripheries of that decision, that what's the weather like, and then the social norms. And that's how it should be. It should be pretty much like what you order to have as food. That's pretty much your personal choice, what your pocket can afford, what's available. Dressing is also pretty much a similar choice, and it should be treated in that same way and not extended to whether somebody is decent, elegant, or in power.
Exactly. So Sabha, why do you think people create molds, and who creates it?
So I think generally speaking, molds, or another word for that is stereotypes, right? And somewhere we all are to some extent guilty of that. In a way, biologically, we are wired in a way that we take information and we process it, making it more easy for us to understand. And to some degree, they can be efficient, like for a shoe shop or a garment sales, so stereotypical sizes, they serve a purpose. Sometimes those habits or those conveniences enter our social aspects of life as well. And when people put you in a fixed mold, it is speaking a lot more about them rather than of you.
Yeah.
Because at times there is this ease of having to reconfigure about a person every time. They're just taking a more easy approach. Maybe I can even go as far as saying a more lazy approach, that instead of having a growth mindset, that every time you meet a person, you look at them with a new perspective. How have they changed? What have they grown? So, and it's easy to sort of bucket them in this, and then just that, okay, no, this is the same person, without any consideration of how life is shaping them. And a large part, it basically serves the person who's putting you in a mold, and then the society, and many times it's the company you keep. So for working women, there is a set mold, set type of stereotypes and words that are attached to. Equally at the forefront of this battle are people who are homemakers.
Yes.
And depending on various circles that you move in,
Yes.
either you can be a star or a trash,
Yes.
depending on who you're hanging out with, right? So like there are these terms like some working lady circles would call a homemaker gharelu,
Yes.
or even domesticated.
Yes.
So the word itself is not derogatory, but the tone and the nuance attached to it
Yes.
is. Either way, for a working woman, she's very fast. That's a word that's very commonly used, or self-centered, or very bossy.
Yes.
So those connotations come, but it largely depends on who you are hanging out with,
That's true.
and then it impacts you and how. And also, I think as we grow, I think my mantra is pretty much take what is beneficial for you, throw out the rest.
That's true. Yeah. So, Geetika, do you think it's possible to reshape the mold, or do we have to break it altogether?
So, Kavita, I think it's not like one size fits all. You know, I think every situation requires a different response. So, in your case, Shamila, your husband could trail you when you decided to work in India. By my own personal experience, I did not have that choice, right? I have to. I mean, I'm a
Yes.
trailing spouse, and I've come here to join my husband. But in my country, but I have broken the mold in a sense that I got married really late. I've gotten married when I'm, in my 40s. So that's breaking the mold in itself, right? And not having children by the age you're,
Yes.
40.
Yes,
That's like a
of
big
course.
thing in our country. The
Of course,
expectation to marry young and have children much earlier in your life is always there, at least from where I come. So I think in that situation, I could break the mold because I was very, very set on my career. I was very sure I wanted to achieve something, and that opportunity to get married at that time was
Yes.
not something that I was willing to consider. But at a time when I could make that decision to leave my job or to trail my husband here, I have taken that decision. So I think different situation would require a different response. Even Kavita, after I got married, right, in these 12 months that we've been married, we've spent a lot of time apart. Which was again, something which was really frowned upon, like, oh, now you're finally married so late in your life, and you're still doing a long distance marriage. But I think at any situation, I think the important thing is that you have to speak your truth. Important thing is whether you're reshaping the mold or you're breaking the mold. I think the idea is to stay very true to who you are, and I think that's the important part. And something else also I'll add, because we've spoken about dressing up, and
Yes.
I think I'm somebody, I love dressing up and I love fashion, and I always believe that what you wear, it doesn't matter. It's a form of self-expression, right? It's your expression. And it's happened to us, right? Like growing up, like my mother, she used to really love dressing us up. And there were times, that we've gone for these family functions and family gatherings, and, we've not complied to
Yes.
that traditional dressing up. And there are times when mothers got calls like, oh, look what Sneha's kids are wearing. But she never let that dim our light.
What about you, Dushima? What do you think?
Yeah, I'll add on to what Geetika said, and I'll give an example of my daughters. Right, they're in New York. They love wearing, like my young elder one. She loves wearing these tube tops and very short shorts. But whenever she's going to India and whenever she's traveling there, her dressing style changes. She wears jeans, she wears shirts, and she makes sure that so I don't tell her to do like that, but she just changes her her style of what she's wearing. She comes here and she's very free. She just wears whatever she likes. I just wanted to add to that maybe there's something ingrained also in us, in our subconscious, as to the perceptions or the safety factors of what one is wearing where. So Kavita, when we're talking about reshaping the mold or breaking it all together, I think, as Geetika was saying, different cultures and different times I think require a different approach. If I recall, I was very early into my career, like 6 years, and I had delivered a very successful project and got promoted as project manager, and that was like I was the youngest one in my office. And soon after a couple of weeks, I was given a very critical, very with a very short deadline project to deliver. We found that it lacked certain telecom domain expertise which was required. So my boss hired someone externally, a PhD in that domain, but he was also 20 years older to me. So now here was a situation, I was the boss and I had a person in my team who was reporting into me, but he was older than me. and coming from a Asian Indian culture where we are supposed to respect elders, it was very hard and conflicting for me to, in a stand-up meeting, to sort of call him out and point that, okay, you're not meeting the deadlines, this was your deliverable, this has not come up. I would call out the other team members, but to him I would sort of go separately or just not point it out. And of course, this inner conflict, and it reflected on the performance of the project. It went sideways. That's another story. Another time, another country. This is like many years down the line. I was in Houston in a oil and gas consulting organization, and we had a new client and we had to do a quick deliverable for them. It was like a 6 weeks project, and in that, one of the domain's consultant, my boss assigned himself as that. So being burnt by this incident, the first day of the start of the project, I made the plan, made the project charter, and then walked into his room and saying, okay, Brandon, just look at this. Is this okay? This is what I've assigned you. This is how we'll do. Is this fine? I mean, I was seeking validation from him. He looked at me and he said, Toshima, you are the boss here. For this 6 weeks, I'm playing the role of a consultant. You are the decision maker. You tell me what to do and I'll deliver. I mean, those words just made me feel so empowered and trusted. I mean, the project got delivered ahead of time and we got client appreciation. So, I mean, it's different times and different cultures. I think you have to react and act, differently.
Oh, that's very true. I mean, personally, my experience with this fitting into the mold has been kind of tragicomic. The first time I felt it was when I had just joined this organization in my 20s. You know, the guards, the messengers, all the staff, support staff, the male support staff were addressing me as Baini, and Baini in Nepali means younger sister. And I was okay with that, right? That was my second job. I was in my 20s, very young, and I really did not care that much. And then within a month or so, I noticed that they were addressing all the male staff, even those who are much junior to me, as sirs. And I also noticed that they were addressing this female staff who was in her 50s as Baini, not even Didi. Didi is like at least elder sister. So they were addressing her as Baini. And so when I realized, I just walked into my boss's room and told him that, this is not done. If they are sirs, then I am madam. And if they're going to address me as Baini, men of the office should either be Dai or Bhai, right? So it immediately changed after that and I became the madam. So that was my first blatant experience. The second time was I had gone for a field visit for an organization, and I was the leader of that team. And there was this man in this team who was junior to me in position, but he was an elder man. All the people who were gathered there, and it was mostly men, they kept addressing him as sir. But when it came to me, they called me sister. By that time, I also realized that for them it was very hard. They understood that I was the senior most person there, and they could not call me Baini, but they could also not bring themselves to address me as madam, and that was the compromise that they made in their head.
I'll like to add on to that something, Kavita, here. In Houston, the same client, after delivering the 6-week project, now we had to do something else for them. Like we won the bid and all, and this was sort of I would say a JAD session where you take the whole room full through the requirements of what they want and elicit. So there are these two females, myself and my colleague, who went there to the client workshop, and there are 50 male in the room. These are all PhDs, and this is in El Paso. All PhDs and all above 50s, like all gray haired, gray and pepper. And they also come from a very old school thought, like, those kind of men. So the first session was a disaster. Like, although both of us did everything right as to what the process is and how the session should be, it was a disaster. We had to go back and we spoke to, my boss, and he understood the situation. He said, Tushima, you were in a male-dominated room, and they still come from very old school. So literally the second time he accompanied us, he started the session and then he gave the room to us. It went on fine. We didn't change anything. We didn't change any style, but I'm just, this is how we are perceived, and of course it has changed through the times, but this is how it was earlier.
Shyamala, what advice would you give to younger South Asian girls growing up in today's world?
I think I'll give probably 3 pieces of advice. The first is embrace who you are and not who you think you should be. It's important, whether it's what you wear or the way you conduct yourself. Be true to yourself. I think that nobody can make you feel inferior unless you give permission for that to happen. Second, I strongly believe that you have to speak up. As Melinda Gates famously said, the woman who has a strong voice is actually a strong woman. And I think you have to really speak out. There is an expression of mansplaining, which is, I think, very much a thing. Men talk over you. I've had it done to me at conferences and public forums, even just dinner conversations. They will talk over you. They will drown you.
True.
Right? And very often they don't even listen. So it's a real thing. But I think assert yourself, speak up. So I think that's my second point. My third point is, even if we feel guilty, and I think all of us, especially when we are mothers, we feel guilty that we are not being there for our kids at all times. We miss many things, as you mentioned, Kavita, whether it's landmark birthdays or school events or whatever. That's happened to me many times, and the guilt is there. But I very much think that a working woman is a fantastic role model for a son or a daughter, either.
Very true.
And I know this from my own circumstances, because I have a son. He saw me working all his life. He's got a degree, he's got a law degree from Harvard University. My daughter-in-law has a degree from Harvard University. But the fact is that my son has taken a back seat now, so that his wife is the primary person. Not the well, in a way, primary income earner even. And he has taken the role of being mother, housekeeper, doing all of the things related to the house and the children. And I think he couldn't have done that if he hadn't, and done it so, how shall I say, so happily, because he doesn't feel he's giving up something or he's compromising. He's actually genuinely happy to do it. And I think that is because he saw a working mother when he was growing up. And at the end of the day, his children, I think, are so much better for it.
That's true. I've always worked after Arav was born, my son was born, and when he was in his elementary school, he was really into football, and he would be following all these purchases of players, like which club bought which player for how many millions. And he was very close to one of our helps, and one day he told the help that, when I grow up and I play for this Manchester United, I'll be making millions and I will give you all the money. And so that help asked him, Babu, what about your family? You'll have your wife and children. And he just looked at him and said, my wife will be working too. She'll take care of the family. So then my help told me that I felt so happy and so proud that I had done at least one good job. So what about you, Tushiba?
my advice would be trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
First, identify what your ambitions are, what your strengths are, and create short-term and long-term goals to realistically achieve them. And I think the second most important thing is to communicate with family members or your boyfriend or your mentors or your friends, your dreams and your ambitions, and build a network of friends, of support system. Surround yourself with people who will inspire you to reach your dreams and your goals. Self-care is important. Whatever said and done, physical health, intellectual growth is as much important as anything else. So take out time for that. Invest, or just in your schedule, build time for that always. Prioritize yourself, which is so important. In my career, a lot of times due to the moves, my career was reset, and when I was reading books and all of, there was always this notion of, oh, there's a glass ceiling, especially for females in the corporate world. Well, I would say that things exist only if we acknowledge it. If there are things which don't align with your beliefs and value system, ignore them, walk away from them, and create your own path. So, I mean, that's it. Trust your journey, trust your dreams, and trust yourself.
So, I mean, I concur with whatever, both Tushima and Shamala said. So, I think for me also, something, Shamala, that you said, having a working mother, I think has changed the way I am. I think it's shaped me in a very different manner. I think she's somebody who was very successful in her own right, and she's always aspirationally had wanted her kids to be very independent. And I think that also happened because she was going out there and working. In a time perhaps where women weren't working, right? And I even see that in my husband. Like you gave an example of your son. I see how my husband is very, very conscious of the fact that I should be very successful in my career, and he's very enabling in that sense because he's seen my mother-in-law, do the same. Like she was a working woman as well, and she's also been very successful in her career. So I think the advice is that yes, like I said earlier, you always have to speak your truth. You can't always conform to other people's expectations. Like I said earlier, it's otherwise it's very stifling. You will become an unhappy person if you always go by what other people expect you to do. So I think yes, just own your truth, and just stay true to yourself.
And Sabha?
So I think Shamla, Tushima and Geetika have covered a lot of areas, and I agree with them. But from my perspective, I think what is very important to understand is that for all the young girls is that there's a lot of consistent hard work required. Whether you choose to be a homemaker, to be a career woman, to be an independent person, life will throw a curveball at you at every step of the way, and you have to be that resilience. You have to exhibit resilience, and you have to be adaptable, flexible, and there is no literally there is no shortcut. Whether you want to be a trailing spouse, your challenges are very different. You want to reinvent your career, you have to relearn things, re-network. And what may look like what we were talking about in our earlier episode, that the cost of having it all, what may look as having it all is a very carefully built mirage. And there's a lot of effort and practical hard work that takes you that way. And always, like everybody said, stay true to yourself. What is right for another person's situation may not apply to you. And the easiest way to break a mold is to just create one for yourself and not try and emulate somebody else. So that's all. Trust yourself, work hard, grow, keep an open mind, and take every difficulty as an opportunity and learn something from it.
We have been talking a lot about, how we can break the mold, and also somehow I think during our conversation we have been talking more like it's there if we let it be there. But I also want to acknowledge that for many women out there, it is really there. It is a hard struggle. Thank you all for this lively discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shilapatra.